Hey everyone, welcome to Clickheads. I'm Eddie the Chump, and today we're going to be talking about one of the best Jett players in the world, and that's Aceu. Ever since the beta began, and now that the game has fully released, highlight clips of him massively outplaying all comers with an agent most would deem weak in the Valorant meta have begun to make people question just how good is Jett, and what does it take to really get the most out of her. Today, we're going to be taking a look at Aceu's Jett play, both the simple and the outrageous, breaking it down and hopefully constructing a guide for you guys so that you can incorporate some of the great things he does into your own game. Be sure to check out Aceu's stream, which is linked in the description. It's really worth it if you're a Jett fan or just a fan of Valorant in general. The guy is nuts. For this first section, I'm going to outline some of the principles of Jett as an agent, the philosophy that players should internalize when playing her, and that Aceu demonstrates so effectively. Jett players have increased license to play ignorantly or aggressive because her kit allows them to make what would be an almost guaranteed unsafe death angle and turn it into something much safer. In doing so, the Jett player can make use of what really is her secret value, subverting opponent expectations. In a game like Valorant, at the top levels, info is king. You find out where someone is, pre-aim that spot, and work the pick. A lot of kills happen because players have been spotted or heard, and their opponents are then prepared to turn an engagement in their favour. Jett's best quality is that her kit allows her to subvert those expectations of where she is or could be, and what angles she's holding or attacking. Top-level Jett players like Aceu are very adept at subverting these player expectations mid-gunfight. Two simple examples of this would be these updraft peeks over mid and A long with her ult on Haven. In these clips, Aceu's opponents are expecting a peek from a traditional spot like window or long, but that's not what Aceu does. By using updraft and his ult in this way, he can catch them completely unprepared by subverting their engagement expectations. Part of the reason Jett is undervalued slightly is because making this kind of play not only requires the game sense to imagine that it could work, but also the high mechanical cost of actually pulling it off. This is what makes Jett hard to play and weaker in the direct sense in comparison to other agents. To play Jett effectively, you have to be smart enough and good enough to create these edges, or you could just pick breach and use flashes and stuns by comparison. Players like Aceu, though, are equipped to make use of her, and in the following section, we're going to be looking at some simple clips to build fundamental understanding before moving on to some more advanced examples to see how he brings all of these principles together to completely outplay his opponents. This first clip has Aceu peeking with the op on Haven double doors. He reacts to the enemy flash by dashing away out of danger and then re-peeks into an angle that is favourable to him getting the kill. He then smokes himself off to avoid the refrag from the mid pressure, and the aggressive player trying to trade him out is killed from mid window. It's really simple, but if he were not playing Jett, he probably would have died here. Her kit is designed for exactly this kind of escape play and allows Aceu to play in a much more aggressive way, as he has ways of appearing as if he's committed when in fact he is not. Moving on, we have Aceu peeking onto site from Haven on split A. Now he knows that the enemies are trying to take site in numbers, so peeking here is usually a case of get one kill, get traded, because the enemy will absolutely be pre-aiming this if they're any good. But he takes the peek knowing that he can get away, and that's exactly what he does. He kills the Brim and dashes away before he can be traded, which is hugely advantageous for his team. He then smokes Heaven ramp to close off another refrag angle, and what I want you to take from this is that Aceu understands the danger at all times and uses Jett's kit to lessen his exposure to risk. To do this, you have to be good at reading the game to know where that risk is. Good Jett players always have a plan, it's not random. Up next is a play with the op in mid of Haven. Initially, he's playing quite a default spot and gets the kill that most good players can get from this position if someone peeks you from window. But he immediately uses updraft to reposition after the kill, and this is because he wants to subvert the expectations of any player coming to try and trade that frag. If he had not, this ulting Phoenix would have been able to much more accurately pre-fire him. As it happens, both players miss, and Aceu dashes away before the Phoenix can really get telling shots on him. This allows him to survive and reposition again. Aceu is always one or two steps ahead of where he places himself. This is something that when you play Jett, you have to make use of, even if you just avoid death instead of getting another kill, as was the case here. Right, next is something that could appear a bit unwise. When Aceu entries with his Phoenix, he sees the defending Sage use her wall. To trade the frag onto his fellow entry, he uses updraft to catch the Sage unprepared. This is risky because of the delay in him being able to shoot, but it works because the Sage is decidedly not expecting him to do that. This is because, having already fought one opponent and walling, the Sage has expended ammo and is most likely not pre-aiming exactly where Aceu appears. That gives Aceu the time he needs to surprise her. It gets worse as well. Because he is now on the wall, he can drop onto B site and have a favourable matchup behind the Sage player's wall against rotating players, and he kills the enemy Sova with relative ease. This is a risky play, but it should help demonstrate that Aceu is always looking to surprise and subvert what his opponents are expecting him to do. Making plays in Valorant is not always about what the highest percentage play is, there is always risk, but you can make something happen with Jett if your mind is quick enough. Moving on, let's just talk about how Aceu uses his Jett smokes for a peek mid on Haven. He knows that an enemy could be close right or hay bales, so he uses her smoke from safety to block that line of sight, and then wallbangs an enemy he has a vague suspicion could be mid-window. Using her smokes in this way to create a less risky angle or peek is exactly how it should be used. As they don't last very long, they're not going to be useful to set up large rushes, but they can enable you to take peeks where you'd have a much bigger chance of being traded otherwise. Again, this is a simple example, but it helps set up more advanced plays later. Next, let's look at how he uses updraft to outplay this Brimstone. After securing the first kill onto Phoenix, he understands that there is likely a teammate looking to trade from a crossfire angle. He smokes and uses updraft to jump spot the right hand side. Because the Brim doesn't see him where he is expecting to see him, which is on the floor, he is unprepared to hit this shot on the updraft because Aceu is already mid-air when the sound cue registers with them. At this point, even when falling, Aceu is slightly favoured because he controls his descent to juke where he is going to land. Notice how he moves forwards and then returns backwards while in the air. This enables him to make the Brim miss and secure the second kill. To further illustrate this point, take a look at this pistol round clip on split A site. He checks all the regular angles and gets from that a good idea that someone might be on his left in this little corridor to the site. He uses updraft and spots the Cypher while doing so. He then completely jukes the player's aim with mid-air movement, making himself incredibly hard to hit. You can see this by watching the Cypher's model struggle to keep up with him. As he lands, the Cypher is still aiming up at where Aceu was, not where he is. As you can expect, Aceu kills this player because he completely did not expect Aceu to move like that. This is what a good Jett player can do to you. You can be exactly where your enemies don't expect at the worst possible time. Now that we've looked at some simpler examples, let's see how Aceu combines all these little plays into a cohesive whole. We begin with this op peek out of double doors on Haven. This is a very risky play for any other agent, as you can easily get wall banged or double peeked. It's a very unwise thing to do most of the time. However, because he's playing Jett, Aceu has more license to hold this kind of angle. The enemies are spraying the doors to remove the armor, likely thinking a player might be window. The Brim that he kills is probably not expecting Aceu to be holding that close, and what does he do after he gets his kill? He doesn't even use his dash here, but like any good op user, he falls away to reposition. Aceu moves to hold close on C long, avoids the breach flashbang, kills him, and immediately uses his smokes and updraft to try and jump spot anyone else trying to trade. He then smokes again, crosses the lane in case anyone pushes the smoke looking for him where he was standing, and then dashes back to the boxes to get a better angle for when the smoke's clear. As they do, the Phoenix doesn't really have any clue where he could be and just peeks into him and dies for free. He kills the Sage as well, but this entire play was built upon Aceu's reading of the game. After his pick out of doors, his C player died on site, so he knows that players are likely going to try and push site to cut him off. But he used Jett's kit to move around and keep them guessing as to where he would eventually end up. Aceu is the danger, so he puts himself where he can do the most damage, and that is almost always where he is not expected to be. This next clip demonstrates this perfectly. Working off some Sova info on B site, Aceu works a pick onto the enemy op player rotating from A. He then dashes onto site, knowing that the enemies are playing at the back, and takes up this spot in the little cubby. He then smokes the angle and watches for any pushes. The reason this play works is because the enemy Jett might think he went left if he smoked right, so the mental game is to subvert that by not pushing left. The Jett tries to make a play by pushing the smoke, hoping to catch Aceu in the back, but Aceu isn't where he predicted. He's watching his own smoke and basically gets a kill for free. It gets worse because Aceu now has control of sight and is exposing the rotating players left alive to angles they're not prepared for. He collects the enemy up and shoots this Sage, trying to kill his teammate who has pushed double doors window. Apart from the first kill, every other one was made much easier by being in a place the enemy either couldn't read or read incorrectly. This last clip is my favourite because it's a clutch that shows just how smart Aceu is alongside his crisp mechanical skill. He's 1 versus 3, and the best he can hope to achieve is to isolate each remaining enemy into a 1v1. This is how clutching works. The Phoenix does him a favour by peeking heaven. It's kind of a bad play from the Phoenix, but the defenders do need to know where he's coming from, and if they played this right post-plant, they could have established a crossfire off of this info. But they don't do that, and instead of dropping onto site, which most people would do immediately, Ace falls back a bit and uses the audio cue of the zip wire to try and bait another peek. They actually don't peek him, so Ace has to move forward in search of them. Now the enemy Brim peeks from B garage, probably trying to get a timing play onto Aceu, believing that he did actually use the rope to get onto site. As we know, he didn't do that, so his bait did work, it's just slightly delayed. He kills that player and now it's go time. One guy left, spike is ticking. Watch what he does here. He smokes right and uses his dash aimed at the floor so he stays exactly where he's standing. He's trying to make the last enemy think he's moved when he hasn't. As he peeks left, you can see the Cypher pre-aiming that smoke, and Aceu has the split-second advantage and kills him from the angle he was absolutely not expecting because of the fake. This is some big brain stuff, and I think it best illustrates what is required to play Jett and get value out of her. You have to be mentally alive to what your actions in-game will lead to in your opponent's minds and then subvert that. Jett allows you to be more aggressive because you can escape. True, she allows you to juke and be creative with her ult. Also true, but really she's a GameSense agent. A GameSense agent that also requires you to be very strong mechanically. To get outrageously pretentious for a moment, allow me to make a musical analogy. Most agents play Valorant like a classical musician. The plays are set, they're direct, the music is written down in front of you, all you have to do is play the right notes at the right time. Jett is an agent for a jazz musician. They know all the theory, all the different scales, they understand complex harmonic ideas and what is supposed to be played. They just have the imagination and the skill to play outside of what's expected and improvise, on the fly, constantly reacting to every new piece of information with a creative response. That's the kind of player that will get the most out of Jett. Someone who does actually understand the principles of Valorant very well, understands the rules, and thusly knows when to break them. That's why I started the video with very basic examples, because that's where anyone hoping to play Jett well will have to start. And that's about it for today. I really hope you enjoyed the video and found the info useful. Don't forget, remember to check out Aceu's Twitch stream in the description and our own Facebook stream. We'll be playing a lot of Valorant on there this week, so it'd be great to see some of you in the chat. If you like the content on this channel, please hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so you get notified when we upload. Until next time!